In the name of God, who is love, beloved, and love overflowing. Amen. So our readings today connect two words for me. Probably seems kind of obvious. The first word is Sabbath. Abraham Joshua Heschel, who was a Polish-American rabbi and one of the leading Jewish theologians and Jewish philosophers of the 20th century, said the meaning of the Sabbath is to celebrate time rather than space. 6 days a week, we live under the tyranny of things of space. On the Sabbath, we become attuned to holiness in time. It is a day on which we are called upon to share in what is eternal in time, to turn from the results of creation to the mystery of creation, from the world of creation to the creation of the world. Now that makes so much sense to me in so many ways. 6 days a week, so many of us are under the constant restraint of the clock. And now in our generations, the information overload that goes along with it, that we actually even forget appointments. The other day on Facebook, Tony posted this, and I thought it was so correct. On Facebook, let's see, being a teacher is just saying, I'll check on that, and then forgetting what you were supposed to check. Well, I mean, you know, you've got information coming at you from all corners, so it makes perfect sense to me. Once a month, I have a Zoom meeting with some pretty amazing spiritual teachers, and guess what? In spite of really looking forward to the discussion, I totally forgot about it. And it wasn't until the next morning on Friday that I realized I thought it was Wednesday all day on Thursday. So I wrote an email to all the folks in this group, and I apologized for my absence. And the response I got was from another person in the group who also forgot all about the group meetings. So we're all in good company. So the Sabbath is a time when we are hopefully answerable to nobody and nothing, particularly schedule related, work related, even if you're retired. I know so many people who are retired who are even more busy now than when they were working. So Heschel added that Sabbath is not only a respite from work, but it's also a time to ponder the gift of creation and the fact that our life is permeated with the presence and the holiness of God. So Sabbath is kind of a liminal time, a liminal space when we practice awareness and gratitude for all that has been given to us from God, including God. Another way of putting it is that the Sabbath is a time to celebrate the sacredness of ourselves, others, and all things. I've said it many times, and I'm going to keep saying it. We live in a sacramental universe because God permeates every bit of it. So Sabbath is kind of a time for hallowing the innate sacredness of all sentient beings. You are all God's hope of glory, and that God has chosen to live and move and have God's being as God works through you. And so with this in mind, we turn to the woman in today's gospel passage who suffered terribly from some kind of debilitating issue, causing her to live her life very bent over. Now, whether it was due to osteoporosis or just feeling beaten down by life, she finds herself at the right time and place, the Sabbath, to be healed by Jesus from whatever it was that ailed her. And there's lots of imaginative conjectures as to what this poor woman was suffering from. But one thing I do know is that cultural expectations often create debilitating situations for people that end up manifesting physically. You know, if you become a workaholic and you never take time for rest, oh yeah, your body's going to physically stop you at some point. You'll get sick in some way, shape, or form until you actually do take more time to be compassionate with yourself. But here are some of the other examples of how life can beat you down. For instance, men are taught from an early age, not pointedly, but all around in secret ways, not to cry, that crying is not manly, not to be overly sensitive, and to, in general, toughen up, buck up. Women, as you all must know by now, have been also victims of these cultural pressures that we have seen for millennia. From the time we're little, we've been told not to get too full of ourselves, not to aim too high for careers that historically have been filled by men. And for goodness sake, don't look overly masculine. Just dye your hair, eat like a bird, and wear revealing clothing, remembering that, of course, if you attract men, they're not responsible when someone forces themselves on you sexually. If this is what the woman in the gospel lesson was suffering from, we can understand why she was so deeply in need of healing. You know, in our own day, just in the last 15, 20 years, we have been hearing from people who say, if your daughter does not want to hug somebody, particularly in the family, don't make her hug somebody. You know, this is how little incestuous problems arise, forcing this little child to think that she does not have ownership of her own body. These are all these little cultural things we have to deal with. So the bottom line is that Sabbath is a particular time, a holy time, when we might say the Spirit roams over the earth and comes with healing, because it certainly did for this woman who was bent over when Jesus entered the area. In a way, Jesus reminded the woman of her innate Sabbath holiness by making her a priority. You know, I can just see some people, religious leaders, who want to buddy up to Jesus, or at the very least, you know, try to get in and see what he was actually teaching. And yet he wasn't interested in making connections with the bigwigs. He was interested in finding the lowly or the hurting and to take care of them first. Compassion was always the priority for Jesus. And so this is good news, because for us, the good news in this passage is that regardless of color, nationality, financial ability, physical ability, we all have deep value to Christ. Even if our financial status or family don't reflect the cultural norms of TV families, we matter deeply to God. In fact, we matter so much that Christ has chosen to live among us as us. Those who accuse Jesus of not respecting the Sabbath obviously really didn't understand that he was actually doing Sabbath work. He was lifting up the lowly, as I said. Whether Jesus was lifting up a person's body, healing them physically, a person's mind, healing them perhaps in the way they thought about themselves, or healing them in the spirit. Jesus was doing the work of God. The work of compassion overrides any kind of the work of rules and regulations. And to that end, I think there should be bumper stickers that say compassion first, last, and always. I think that's actually a good one for our sign. I think we may have to put that up there. So I want to end with a kind of a poem from a writer that I really admire. Her name is Angie Sullins, and she is a truth teller, and in many ways a liberator from all these cultural norms that can sometimes cripple us. This is called The Other Story, or What Men Got Wrong. They told you God was angry, that he sat on the throne of thunder, brow furrowed, fingers twitching with judgment, unable to stomach the stink of you, your sin, your skin, your birth blood, and midnight thoughts. They said you were born filthy, that your heart was black, your body suspect, your desire a thing to be battled or buried. They said God could not bear to look at you without Jesus as a kind of divine disguise, a cosmic cover-up for your unholy everything. But Love Pie, what if they were wrong? What if they wrote the story with cracked quills and crumbling fear, blinded by power and parchment? What if the God behind the curtain was not wrathful after all, but wild with love? What if she was mother as much as father, river as much as fire, neither male nor female, and both and more, the breath between stars, the blood between thighs, the whisper in the womb that says yes to life, even when life has been taught to say no? What if God delighted in your birth, kissed your wet skin, sang you into existence with the same mouth that sang the galaxies? What if God adores you the way you laugh out loud, loves your body, your real one, with all of its stretch marks and scars and hungers and heat, its scared mess? What if the bleeding of women was never shame, but sacrament, a holy tide, an altar cloth, a rhythm that pulsed with the heartbeat of the divine? And what if Jesus didn't come to save you from God, but to show you who God really is? A God who washes feet instead of pointing fingers, who dines with immigrants and heretics and names them beloved, who walks on water, not to impress, but to whisper, you can too. A God who gathers the outcast, crowns the queer, lifts the leper, and says to the child of every body and background, you are mine. You are whole. You are enough. This is not the gospel they preached from pulpits lined with fear. This is the gospel of the womb, of wild mercy, of the holy yes. So take off your cloak of shame. It was never yours. Step into the garden again, barefoot, glorious, free. The God who made you wants you exactly as you are. Radiant, real, and already home. That is a Sabbath moment. Amen.